He sat there every evening, in the same corner of that quiet cafe, staring into a cup of coffee that had long gone cold. His suit was worth more than most people's yearly salary, yet his eyes told the story of a man who had everything, and nothing. Rain fell softly outside the window, blurring the city lights like fading memories. The world knew him as Alexander Reid, the youngest CEO of a billion-dollar company, but tonight, he was just a man who had forgotten how to smile. And then, out of nowhere, a small voice broke through the silence. "Are you okay, sir?" He looked up. A little girl, maybe 6 or 7, stood before him, holding a melting ice cream and wearing a bright yellow raincoat 2 sizes too big. That single question would change everything. Cloud with Rain Chapter 1, The Man Who Forgot to Feel. Alexander Reid's life looked perfect from the outside. The newspapers called him the visionary of Vanguard Corp. His face was on magazine covers, his speeches went viral, and his employees worshipped his discipline. But what the world never saw was how empty his penthouse felt when he came home each night. 2 years ago, Alexander lost his wife in a car accident. Since that day, he had buried himself in work, chasing deadlines, avoiding emotions, and building higher walls around his heart. His friends stopped calling, his family stopped visiting, and soon, even sleep stopped coming. Every evening, after the office lights went out, he found himself at the same cafe, sitting in the corner seat his wife once loved. The waitress would quietly place his usual order, black coffee, no sugar, and walk away. He never spoke, never smiled. But that night was different. The little girl with the yellow raincoat stared up at him with innocent eyes. "You look sad," she said softly. "Did someone make you cry?" Alexander blinked, caught off guard. "No, I'm fine," he said, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. She frowned. "That's what my daddy says when he's not fine." He chuckled despite himself, the sound rusty, unused. "And where's your daddy now?" he asked gently. She looked down. "In heaven. Mommy says he's watching us." The air shifted. Something in her small voice, so honest, so pure, pierced straight through his armor. For the first time in years, Alexander didn't know what to say. The girl noticed his silence and smiled up at him again. "It's okay. When I miss my daddy, I come here and talk to him. Maybe you can talk to your person too." He stared at her, stunned by the simplicity of her heart. Before he could reply, her mother came rushing in, a young woman in her early 30s, hair damp from the rain. "Lily," she called out, slightly out of breath. "You can't just walk up to strangers, sweetheart." Alexander stood, gesturing politely. "It's all right. She's very kind." The mother smiled apologetically. "I'm sorry if she disturbed you, Mr. Reid," he said quietly. Alexander Reid. Her eyes widened for a second, recognition flashing briefly. "Oh, the CEO." He nodded awkwardly, suddenly uncomfortable with the title. "Well," she said softly, "I'm Grace. And this curious one is Lily." Lily grinned. "Hi, Mr. Sad Man." Grace gasped. "Lily." But Alexander laughed, really laughed, for the first time in months. "It's all right," he said. "I suppose that's fair." They chatted for a few more minutes, and when Grace led Lily away, Alexander found himself staring at the door long after they were gone, wondering why that brief encounter had made the cafe feel a little warmer. For the first time, he didn't leave right away. He sat there, thinking. About his wife. About the life he'd stopped living. And about a little girl in a yellow raincoat who somehow made him feel seen. Sun Chapter 2. The Smile That Came Back. Days passed, but Alexander couldn't stop thinking about Lily and Grace. Their simple warmth had left a mark he couldn't explain. So one evening, he returned to the cafe again, hoping, perhaps foolishly, that they might come back. And they did. Lily spotted him first. "Mr. Sad Man," she squealed, running over with open arms. Grace looked embarrassed, but Alexander smiled genuinely this time. They began talking more often. Each visit became a quiet ritual, Lily's laughter filling the empty space in his heart, Grace's calm kindness soothing his restless soul. Slowly, without realizing it, Alexander started to heal. Grace told him about her struggles, being a single mother, working 2 jobs, losing her husband to cancer 3 years ago. She didn't complain. She just kept moving forward, with strength that humbled him. One evening, After Lily ran to the counter to choose her favorite cupcake, Alexander said softly, "You're stronger than anyone I've ever met." Grace smiled sadly. "We don't really get a choice, do we? We either drown, or learn to breathe underwater." That night, Alexander couldn't sleep. He thought about her words, about how he'd been drowning for years without even trying to swim. The next morning, he did something he hadn't done in a long time. He visited his wife's grave. He stood there for hours, talking quietly. Telling her about the little girl who made him smile. About the mother who reminded him that life still had color. Tears fell freely for the first time in years. But they weren't tears of pain anymore, they were of release. In the weeks that followed, Alexander began changing. He started greeting his employees. He smiled more. He gave generous donations to the local children's foundation, anonymously, of course. And every Sunday, he met Grace and Lily at the cafe. They laughed, talked, and shared stories about the people they'd loved and lost. One day, Lily handed him a small, hand-drawn card. It said, in crooked crayon letters, "You're not Mr. Sad Man anymore, you're Mr. Okay Man." He laughed, a deep, heartfelt sound that filled the cafe. Grace smiled beside him, eyes glistening. Alexander reached out, taking her hand gently. "You and Lily, you brought me back to life," he said softly. She squeezed his hand. "Maybe you just needed someone to remind you it's okay to live again." The rain began to fall outside once more, but this time, the cafe didn't feel lonely. It felt like home. And as Lily's laughter echoed through the air, Alexander realized something beautiful. Sometimes, healing doesn't come from wealth, power, or success. It comes from the smallest hearts, asking the simplest questions. "Are you okay, sir?" And this time, he truly was. Glowing star moral message closing scene for YouTube narration. No matter how lost or broken you feel, kindness has the power to find you, even in the quietest corners of life. Sometimes, all it takes is a stranger's small question to remind your heart how to beat again.